Thank you very much. Papanui-Innes Community Board, Ali Jones, Christine Main, thank you.
Morena.
Morena.
Right, well, as you'll see from our happy birthday. She already had too many happy birthdays. Is it your birthday? Anyway, so you'll see from our PowerPoint that today the presentation is brought to you by mud. There's quite a bit going on in the ward, and of course with the weather that we've had, there's quite a lot of mud in our photographs. The really good news, obviously, for our ward is that apart from some surface flooding, with all the rain that we've had, there haven't been problems, and I think that that's all credit to the work that has gone in and the effort that's gone in over the last 2 or 3 years. So this is the St Albans Park and Pavilion. There's the mud, a lot of rain. That's a lovely looking cricket pitch in the middle. That is all on track, and in fact I've had some really positive feedback from residents who have just got in touch and said it's really moving along at a pace, which is wonderful to see. And I think all credit again to staff for keeping residents in the loop as to what's happening, and that's been helpful as well. No Part A recommendations, actually, just go back to that. Two main issues in the ward at the moment, and we'll just let the pictures go through. Well, actually, that's our first main issue in the ward, actually. The northern corridor is powering along. I'll let the pictures just roll through. They're on a timer. And we've just completed consultation, which is called the downstream effects of the CNC, the Northern Corridor project. And staff delivered 12,000 documents to residents. 400 submissions were received. 180 of those were received after the first 2 of 4 sessions, 4 or 5 sessions, consultation sessions. The board will have a workshop giving us feedback on what, not detailed, not drilling down, but an overview of the consultation on the 20th of June, and I imagine we'll be able to make some public comment after that, but not before the 20th. I think what's really important to note here, especially in this public forum, is that there has been some reportage around, and we'll always get this, I guess, with consultations, is that this is a foregone conclusion, it's a fait accompli, Council's made its mind up, etc., etc. And I said in the last presentation from the board to the Council that the consultation documents are fantastic as far as the information they contain and how clear they are. So it's really disappointing to hear that actually from residents. And attending one of the consultations, I had someone say exactly the same thing to me. And I think by the end of the conversation and speaking to staff, their opinion had changed. What staff have said to me and council officers at the consultation is that they have received some really valid, interesting and significant suggestions and information from residents, and that's the whole point of consultation. So those will be, I am sure, or a number of those will be incorporated, and we'll hear about that on the 20th. It's also important to note that the project along the CNC corridor here is an NZTA project primarily with the CNC team involving Christchurch City Council staff, but it is an NZTA project. So that has been put in place, and we are now dealing with the downstream effects from the Innes Road intersection. We are doing what our community has asked us to do and look at how we can mitigate those or the increased traffic and congestions. So we're actually just doing what our community is asking us to do. So again, it is, I have to say, a little disappointing when we are perhaps accused of not doing what we should have and perhaps not doing what we should have done any sooner. This is the soonest that we could do it. So we look forward to that presentation on the 20th. The second biggest issue in the ward at the moment is still around the Richmond-Shirley area, and I think, again, staff engagement with residents there has been excellent. There have been 2 or 3 hiccups, and I'm not going to go into details with it. There were some flyers that weren't delivered, and that's been dealt with very, very quickly by staff, and it's unfortunate where we've got a community that is still so raw that these things happen. But again, staff have been fantastic at pulling that back and dealing with it. We have a staff meeting, or rather a community meeting, that is scheduled for, whisper in my ear, Christine, Tuesday the, oh no, that we've had that.
It's the 13th or the 15th.
13th or 15th of June, so it's in mid-June. And this will be to address the concerns of residents, and there will be staff there as well. And we're doing a roading audit around the area because that's clearly a concern with the standard and quality of the roads. So there will be a roading audit, and that information will be presented at that as well. And that's been received positively by members of the community. So those are the two main ones. Some positive stuff happening in the ward as well. I mean, obviously the St Albans Park, that's very positive. The Papanui Bush and the Bridgestone Reserve Regeneration Project. We had our second planting day on Tuesday. John Stringer and Emma Norrish braved the cold weather. We thought it would be snowing. And there were 700 plants planted initially in the first stage in April, and the second stage, how many did they say? 1,500. 1,500 plants were planted yesterday. Papanui High School turned out in good numbers, which was excellent. And so that's a very, very positive project to regenerate the native forests and the Bridgestone Reserve. Just bear with me while I flick through my notes. We're increasingly buoyed and impressed by community organisations engaging with areas of the community. One such project at the moment is the Papanui Community Survey. It's being driven by the Papanui Baptist Freedom and Northgate Trusts. It started in March at the Papanui Neighbourhood Day, and it'll go through to October this year. There are 70 individual surveys that have been completed to date, and what this involves is social media, Facebook and Neighbourly are also reaching residents, but there's door knocking going on, and it's going around the neighbourhood and saying, are you okay? Are there any issues? It's that face-to-face contact, and invariably it throws up issues that we would never have known about in these community groups, would never have known about otherwise. So that is a really positive thing that our community groups are doing. I think that is about all. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I will just flick through. No, that'll do.
Got to look at the time at the front end. Just quickly, Phil and Jimmy.
Thank you, Ellie. The PowerPoint you had around the Northern Arterial just seemed to be a section there where there might be potential in terms of public transport to actually have some land set aside for a form of park and ride. Have your board considered that yet? Or
that's really interesting, Phil. Yeah. We hadn't thought of that actually. I think it's something
through the submissions.
Yeah, and yes, and that's right. Pauline's just said it coming through in the submissions, and that's where it will come through, and we can address it. But yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point.
Exactly.
Because the cycleway, obviously, and getting people using. Yeah. Just in case you didn't know, because that's going to be a very busy road. What we're trying to do too is bring cyclists through McFadden's Road and onto the cycleway that goes down Rutland Street. So sort of taking them off that really busy road. There will be speedy cyclists, much like Mike Davidson, I'm sure, that will use the speedy Cranford Street one, but there is an option to take kids, for example, in schools in the area. But that's a good idea. Thank you.
Jimmy?
One question, Ali. Based on your on page 20, you mentioned the Papanui Community Survey. It will be the comments from the March to the October. Why it been take so long, 7 months?
Well, I think because they're volunteer groups mainly, okay, Jimmy, yes. And it's people who are working as well as doing the survey. Okay, yes. There will be tenants and people who own houses that aren't there, so they'll go back and review. Seasonally, I think it's a good idea to get an idea of what the issues are across a year through the summer and the spring and the winter, which can throw up other issues as well. So, yeah, it's a long time, but it gives us really good information, or it gives the organisations really good information.
Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Mike, would you like to move that? Pauline, like to second it? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much, Ellie.
Thank you.